Whenever
Please.
he clicks in,
Yeah, please go ahead and start.
So
Yep.
He'll take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Dr. Murray, I appreciate you having me on. And to me, granted, I'm in knee deep in budget processing for 21 and preparation. It was my pleasure to be a part of your class and be able to speak to your great students in the future of our hospitality and the hospitality business, especially here on the West Coast of Florida. But I got to tell you that COVID has really changed the way overall what we do as operators of hotels, what we do in managing the day-to-day operations, to looking at different types of revenue streams, et cetera, and even overall guest satisfaction. And so for me, I was in some sense, I was kind of fortunate to go through a couple of really bad situations in the past in my career, which with 9/11, and then also with the market when it crashed in 2007, 2008. So I was very fortunate to be a part of a leadership group and see what we did right and what we did wrong, and really incorporate that into what we're dealing with now. I can tell you that no one could have foreseen what would happen and how devastating this pandemic would have done to our industry. But I got to say that we rallied as a company, as with Coulter, and then also at the Westin as a group. It wasn't just me. It was just more of us coming together and saying, okay, how are we going to get through this? The great news is, and I want to share with all of you, because I know some of you are hospitality students and some may be taking this as a minor, I'm not sure. But I will tell you that our industry is very resilient. And if you have any reservation, or if you had any thoughts of changing your career path because you see some hotels closing or these layoffs occurring, that's occurring in pretty much in every industry, except for like, I would imagine, the healthcare industry. But we're all taking a big hit. It's just how we manage through that. And I think a lot of the times as leaders, we tend to look at the issue on a small scale, but down the road, understanding that things are going to get better. So the biggest thing for me was the loyalty of my team and loyalty of my staff, and doing everything we can to keep them working. So we unfortunately, when the market and everything shut down really in March and April, we unfortunately did have to have some layoffs and furloughs, just like every other hotel. The difference between us, though, and I think in some of our other competitors, is that we kept key positions going. Even though at a loss, we still kept a key management group going, our director of sales, director of revenue, director of engineering, director of rooms, myself, director of housekeeping, director of finance. And then we kept our executive chef, his sous chef on board, because at the end of the day, we knew that we had to keep going. And as difficult and as challenging as it was, we made it through. We started to come up with ideas of what I think outside of the box of not just selling hotel rooms or meeting space. We started becoming a delivery service for our local condos in the area where they wanted to have a Westin meal delivered to them. We did things like that. We also looked at opportunities where we lowered our rates, and we knew by lowering our rates, we would get a different clientele that's never been able to really see what the Westin's all about, especially being an upper upscale brand. Unfortunately, some people may not have the ability to stay or pay for a hotel this type of quality. So we opened our rates up, and more people got to see the hotel. We kept our rooftop open. And it was at limited, and we followed all of the local and state guidelines. But at the end of the day, we stayed open, not just for our staff, because we felt that we needed to be loyal to them, but also to our community as well. And it worked out. And I think for us, that momentum, as soon as things started to pick up, we saw our occupancy jump dramatically, and we were prepared for it, where in some cases, some hoteliers and some restaurants were not. They were, things got better, and yet they didn't have the staff, so they really couldn't open at full capacity, whereas us, we just kept going. We just slowly started adding our team members in and bringing them in as things got better. So, I got to tell you that managing during this COVID time has allowed us to become a lot more strategic. We look at things a little bit more detailed. Everything counts from an expense perspective. We implemented we had labor reviews before, but now it's based on business levels, and we made adjustments accordingly, up or down, and seeing how the market was performing and how we were performing from an occupancy level. So I think but the biggest thing for us is that we kept our core group of sales managers here. And because of doing that, I think it really helped us for 21. So yes, we're dealing with what we're dealing with in 20. Do I think things are going to get better right away in the first quarter of 21? They will, but not to the levels of what we were doing last year. But I can tell you that when a group would call to the hotel and want to speak and want to look at, because they understand that, hey, hotels are giving out deals, and now if I want to have my meeting that I couldn't have at the Westin before, but now maybe they might be able to work with us. Or maybe I wanted to book a hotel at one of these other local hotels, and no one's answering because their entire sales team has been furloughed, and our sales team is available, and we're still able to do walkthroughs. It really worked out, and we've been able to layer in more group business at our hotel for future years, and that's what I was looking at. Yes, it's good to look at. My job is to look at the overall operation, but I also have to have the forethought of looking at things down the road and how 21, 22 is going to pan out. And I think it really paid dividends by having our sales team here. So I think that really played a big. That was a big thing for us, and we were really successful with regards to that. The other thing is that we wanted to continue to deliver great service. And I'm sure all of you have gone through this, where you've gone to, let's just say, a local Target or a local store, and the first thing when they get bad service, the first thing that they'll say, oh, it's because of COVID, right? Because of our staffing levels. Oh, I'm sorry, because of COVID. And we didn't want to take that approach. We wanted to make sure it's like, look, guys, this is the time now to shine and break away from the pack. And at that time, in March, we were in the top 10 in TripAdvisor. Now we're in the top 6. Now we're the top full-service hotel on TripAdvisor, which is a great accomplishment. And we did that because we were very transparent with our staff. I'm like, and it's like a domino effect. If you deliver great service, you're going to be able to bring back new business and current business over and over again. It's simple. And sometimes I think ladies and gentlemen in my role forget that, and we forget that we're in the hotel, we're in the people business, and we talk about driving rate, we talk about RevPAR, and we talk about these different statistics that make things work. But if you have crappy service, people are not going to stay at your hotel. They're just not. And guess what? If you treat your staff badly, that's going to reflect in your service scores. And Akila can share with you about this, is that we're very adamant about making sure that our team enjoy to come to work. They're comfortable. There was a time, Akila, if you don't mind me using this story, there was a time where there was a guest that got really, was really rude to Akilia, and I had a heart-to-heart with that gentleman, and that wasn't acceptable to me, because we have each other's back, and we're going to support our team and staff, and to me that's truly important. I think sometimes we tend to forget that people come first in our business, and it's not just our guests, it's also our team members as well. And you have to make sure that you have the right team in place to deliver great service. And we've seen that, and because of that, we're actually up. For this month, we're probably going to beat our numbers from last year, which is incredible, considering the fact that, with everything going on with shutdowns and regulations, and how you can have your restaurants and food and beverage operations work, for us to sit here and say that we can potentially beat our numbers from last year, it's a great story. It's a testament to our team and what we put together and what the culture that we've established here at the Westin. So I could tell you all that, and I highly encourage you that wherever you work, whether it's in the hotel business, whether it's a different industry in general, you got to enjoy where you work, and you got to bring passion and dedication to excellence, because that's how things are going to get better. And as I mentioned earlier, that our industry is very resilient. We've been through so much that some of you may not even remember, and that I've gone through. I was just like, wow, I would never think this could happen. Like, how can, I worked in a hotel in South Florida where we were running 90% occupancy, and the Twin Towers and 9/11, everything happened, and you're talking about occupancy was like to 10%. And I would never think I would see something like that in my lifetime again. And sure enough, look, here we are now. And the thing is that our industry is going to be back, and we're going to come back just like we always do, resilient as ever. We might be a little bit more nimble, and we'll come out smarter in this, but we will come back, and it will come back. The industry will come back. So it's a great, I love what I do for a living. I enjoy working with different people. I love the fact that I get to meet someone different and new every day. It's a great thing to be a GM. You get to work with all these different problems, what do you say, and how you're going to address them. And for me, that's exciting. I get a thrill out of that. But also getting to work with and groom and mentor future leaders of our industry is really fulfilling to me. And I think, I don't know if Dr. Morelos mentioned this to you guys, but eventually, when I grow up, I do want to be a professor because I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking to the future leaders and people that are interested in the hospitality business. I look at Dr. Morelos as a guy that I look up to, because it's, teaching somebody, yes, it's great. I love what I do. We deliver great experiences for our guests. When they walk away, they write these great comments, or they talk about our staff, or you're delivering a great financial statement to your ownership. That's all great, and I love doing that. But what's priceless, that you cannot put a price tag on, is when you make a difference in someone's life. And that, to me, is, you can't put a price tag on it. It's priceless. It's something that I really thrive on and I enjoy. And hopefully you guys know that, this is a great industry to be a part of. So I could tell you a little bit about my background. I talked a little bit about COVID. I started off in the industry as a 16-year-old front desk agent in South Florida. And through high school, my mother had to write a little a note to my HR director to say to her that I was allowed to work in a hotel for X amount of days or X amount of hours. And she still reminds me of that in my career. It's just like, oh, remember when I used to have to write, you have your mother write you a permission slip. So, and then I worked my way up. I started off as a front desk supervisor, then went into front desk manager, went off to college, continued becoming, I was still a manager when I was in college, and then became front office manager when I graduated at Lynn University. And then my career really started to grow. I went to Syracuse, New York, became the director of rooms there at the Sheraton in Syracuse, and then became the hotel manager. And I was there for 5 years, and then I moved to Orlando, became the resort manager at a Sheraton, right on Disney property. And then I became a first-time GM around 31 or so. It's still the largest hotel that I've ever managed. And at the Sheraton Detroit Metro Airport, I was the GM there. And then I had an opportunity to go back to my old company, Ambridge Hospitality, in California, and transferred, and my entire family there. Became the GM at the Embassy Suites Anaheim Orange. And then after that, my hotel sold. It did so well that it sold, and I got promoted to a new build Autograph Collection, which is a luxury boutique property. And then things changed. Life changes. I knew that eventually I wanted to get back to Florida, and my mother was unfortunately diagnosed with cancer. And it was just something that I looked at, and it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. It's a new build hotel, the Westin, and they gave me an offer that I couldn't refuse, and it all worked out. So, and then I also went to graduate school. I went to Michigan State University and got my master's in leadership strategy and executive management. And then now, hopefully, I can parlay that into potentially teaching as an adjunct professor while I continue my duties as the general manager here at the Westin Sarasota. So that, in a nutshell, has been my career in the business. It's been 22 years, the longest relationship I've ever had, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It's been great. It's been great for my family. We've been able to travel and see some great cities. I've been a part of some great teams where we won, whether it's Hotel of the Year or service excellence or things of that nature. It was never just me. It was always the team approach and thinking about that. So that's when everyone asks, it's like, what's your secret sauce? Like, what do you do when you go to hotels? And it's very simple. It's you treat your staff right. You bring in people that actually are passionate about service and are passionate about the industry in general. And then overall, after that, things are going to fall in line. Now, also put in the perspective, I try to surround myself with people that really, I would say, smarter than me. I would say that they're experts in their field. I think sometimes GMs tend to want to bring in people that are not so much in that case. They can control them a little bit. For me, I want people to have an open mind and be progressive in their thinking. And it's worked out. It really has. It really worked out for me, and it's really worked out for our team here at the Westin. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we've done. What I've done in my career, and what I would like to see in the future is that for all of you to really find something that you're passionate about. And I believe that this industry is really in need of positive, progressive, thoughtful thinkers, passionate people. And if you have that in you, please join the hospitality, whether it's the hotel or restaurant industry, because the opportunities are endless out there. Can you?
Yeah, I am muted. Gil, before we open it for questions, would you sort of walk us through the Westin and walk us through how you're organized, what the departments are, and what you see as the major, obviously food and beverages to feed people, got it. But I mean, what you see as the major approach that you have in each department, and the kind of people you have in both in staffing, in staffed positions, as well as leadership positions in those departments. And I guess the big overarching question always is, and you've certainly alluded to it today, is how do you balance service in each of those departments, service that and product that the guest wants, versus profitability and versus efficiency.
Correct.
So see if you can take a stab at that, Gil.
Okay. Well, we have about 110 team members at the hotel, and
how many rooms, Gil?
We have 255. 255. We have about 25,000 square feet of meeting space. So a lot of space, and we're mainly built as a group house, so to say. Then I have an executive team that reports directly to me. So I have, as I mentioned earlier, a director of finance who has oversight of all of accounting. I have a director of HR, a director of engineering, director of rooms who has oversight of all of the rooms related, front desk, housekeeping, security, front drive. And then I have a chef and B, which is in some hotels, it's mainly called the director of food and beverage, but we have an executive chef that's really talented and has a great understanding of both the heart of the house and the front of the house. So he oversees all of culinary, and he also oversees the front of the house as well. And then everyone from food and beverage reports directly to him. And then we also have a see, director of HR, director of engineering, director of revenue management, who solely focuses on driving transient room revenue to this hotel. Analytics, he's constantly looking at different trends, looking at the STAR report, looking at how the market is performing and what our competitors are doing, and then pulling those levers up or down in order to drive occupancy and business to this hotel. So that's solely what he does. And then I also have a director of sales who's in charge of director of sales and marketing, who's in charge of that, mainly the sales of the hotel and bringing in group and banquet and catering pieces to the property as well. So, and then underneath them, they have department heads that report to them. Was the director of rooms. We have a front office manager. You have an outlets manager, sous chefs. And director of catering, senior sales managers per se, that report directly up to those executive committee members. And then underneath them, they have our line level team members that report to those department heads. So that's how really the layout of the land at the Westin is. And then to your point about like service and profitability, it's a fine-tuned approach. You have, for example, from a service perspective, and I'll use the front desk as an example. Pretty much every single team member that works at that front desk has never worked in a hotel, ever. And I actually enjoy that, because for me, then they don't bring any bad habits from other hotels, so to say. If you have the capability of being passionate and love what you do and enjoy dealing with guests and different people, then we'll put you at the front desk and we'll teach you the technical side. We'll teach you that. That's easy to learn. But we can't teach you of being nice to somebody. We can't teach you how to smile. That's why Keela did so well at our hotel, and Cole does so well in our Service Express, is because you can't teach people to be nice. You just can't. Like, you're either a jerk or you're a nice person. There's no, and maybe there's some people that can be in between. But overall, though, if you're a good, kind-hearted person that enjoys dealing with guests, you're going to be successful in the hotel business. So, and that's why they did so well, to the point where they've won awards. You know, whether it's Keela winning Team Member of the Quarter, Mason being nominated for Team Member of the Quarter, and so is Cole. You know, it's because they chose to take the path, and they love dealing with guests and people, and we love that. So then, so we try to make sure that we hire for attitude, and then we can train for the mechanical and the technical stuff after. And then from a profitability perspective, having those tools in place, like looking at your forecasts, looking at your dailies every day to come in. Okay, occupancy was 60% last night. Our forecast was 70%. We need to dial that back and make up. So your labor was this amount. You may have to adjust it in the next day, but we provide those tools for our managers to look at, so that they can make the adjustments. At the end of the day, I have a rule at my hotel, is that the financial statement should not be a surprise to you when it comes out. It shouldn't. You know, when you get a P&L and it says that you were supposed to flow 60 or 70% to the bottom line, and it's only 30, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? Well, what do you mean, what happened? You should know. You're the director. You're the manager. So we have to give, as myself and the executive team, we have to give our staff the tools to be successful, and they need to understand what's going on in order for them to make adjustments up or down, staffing wise, expense wise, in order to be a profitable operation.
Gil, how often do you meet with the executive team?
Once a week.
Okay.
As a group.
And then in each of their departments, they decide on how often they're going to meet with their staff, or?
Correct. We would like our team members our managers to meet with their team members once a month, just to kind of give a staff meeting, an idea of what's going on. Normally, pre-COVID times, we would have a quarterly event. We are bringing those back. It was challenged because we would do it by Zoom, and sometimes it would work, and sometimes it just wasn't really practical. But now I think that things are improving, and we're understanding of what we can and cannot do. We are bringing those back. I do conduct a weekly staff meeting with all of our managers, just to kind of give you an update on what's going on in the hotel. What are we looking at in the future? What opportunities can we really zone in on? How our service scores are comparing versus not only the market, but also versus the brand and within North America. What can we do? And we look at it not just as a whole, but we look at it as different departments like food and beverage, housekeeping, overall staff services. And we have those discussions in our meetings once a week on Wednesday.
And when you meet with folks, either with your executive team or when they meet with their folks in each area or each department, so are they looking at both sides of the equation? Are they looking at the Yelp or any of the other social media feedback issues, as well as what the expenses were for?
Yes. So I get a lovely alert on my cell phone every time I do get a negative feedback.
Do you really?
Yes. So luckily that doesn't happen a lot, but it's I've worked at some hotels where that thing was beeping every other hour, and we have those discussions and we have those crucial conversations with our staff. I'm like, what happened here? Like, what can we do better? And look, I'll be the first one. We're not perfect. We know we'll learn from our mistakes and we'll just grow from it. But we do have those candid conversations with our team, and we say, hey, this is where we stand, and this is what we need to do. This is what the guest is saying. If that's perception, then we need to fix it. And that's something that I think is extremely important, that we do not think that we're perfect or we don't do anything wrong, because we do. We have bad days. I have bad days. So, and when that happens, how are you going to address it? So,
and when you have, on the other side of the coin, when you've got, I suppose, housekeeping, for example, or the restaurant, looking at labor costs and staffing hours. I mean, those are things that you really have to do more than once a week, I suppose, in most hotels. And do you all look at those on a weekly or a daily basis?
So we get a labor review report that comes out twice a week. So it kind of tells you exactly where you stand versus the forecast, versus the budget, versus last year. And then it tells you, and there's times where we'll say, hey guys, you don't have enough staff. You need to add more payroll, or you need to add overtime in some sense. Some people think that, cut overtime. Well, there's some times where we're like, you need to add people, because if not, we're going to get smashed with regards to guests and the business volumes that are coming in our hotel. So it's important to really analyze those reports and understand where we look at. Or there's times when we're doing our inventory and we feel that we've got too much in wine and a certain brand that we've got to get rid of, and we're just sitting on the shelf and it's going to go bad, or we got to do something about it. So we'll run a special. So it all relates. It's all about how you manage the day-to-day. You got to have strong people in those roles. You got to have a strong person in food and beverage, because if you screw that up, that could really be a detriment to the overall operation. You got to have somebody that's super strong in housekeeping, because you can have the best front desk and the best valet staff, but then if they get to their room and their bed is dirty, or their bathroom is dirty, or it's not, the room itself is not clean, it just throws away all the stuff that we've done in the initial part of your stay. Yeah. So you got to have strong people in those roles. Director of sales is super critical, because you got to bring the business in, but then you also have to have a clean operation. You have to have smiling faces and things of that nature in order for them to sell the dream. Because the first thing that I'm sure most of you do when you travel is you go onto TripAdvisor, or you go onto Yelp, or you go onto like all these different sites to see, okay, what is this hotel about? And for us, we need to have people that are passionate and that understand what they do in order for us to be successful. So.
Yeah, one more technical question before we open it up, Gil. Just for context here, for me anyway, I can't remember what room and guest management system are you guys using there?
We use Lightspeed.
Lightspeed, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's a Windows-based system, right?
Yes, it's proprietary to. It came when it was part of Starwood Hotels and Resorts, and when Marriott bought them. Oh, did I lose you guys?
No, we're here.
Sorry. It was part of Starwood Hotels and Resorts, and then when Marriott bought Starwood, they incorporated that and they kept the system on. So it's pretty. Yeah, it's a Windows-based. It's kind of like an Apple-based computer program. It's pretty simple. You could probably, I don't know, Akila, how long did it take you to learn the system when you were here?
Well, when I was there, it was a room rack and the NCR 4200.
Is that the paper version? Is that
with little tickets,
Okay.
No, when I had to learn it to teach it, I mean, it didn't take long because, it did before Windows came out. Before Windows, we had to learn all these DOS commands, and
okay.
now it's just a lot. I'm familiar with Fidelio and Opera and all that, and they're pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, I had Opera in my last hotel in California. Little probably simpler than Lightspeed, but does the trick.
Yeah. All right. I just was curious. I like context. Well, you guys know I'm getting that way. So let me open this up now to our student audience, and then after our students have had a chance to ask questions, Dr. Jihan will see if any of the broader audience has anything. So students, have at it. Gil Ryes, he's all yours.
I have a question.
Okay, Devin.
So it's not really anything you talked about, but it was something I thought about from last semester when I heard you speak.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you guys do a lot of activities like the morning runs with guests,
Mm-hmm.
and like you'll have like music and stuff, live music in the lobbies. How has that changed? Like, have you added new things or changed them to go with the effect of COVID?
So that's a good question. So currently, we did suspend some of those items, like the Westin Run Concierge. I would do them sometimes with our Run Concierge and meet with guests in the morning, and we'll take a run right over the bridge. And then also, we would bring in live bands and local singers to the rooftop or even our lobby. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the restrictions, we have to be very careful because we from a capacity perspective, we had to follow certain guidelines, and we felt that bringing a band or bringing a singer here would affect overall capacity, and we really didn't want to turn away anyone. So we suspended that. We do plan on bringing that in. I did budget for it for 21, and that's the plan of bringing that back, as well as the Westin Run Concierge as well.
Hey, good question, Akili. Devin. Good. All right, who's next?
I'll go. My computer's buzzing, so if you hear like background noise, I'm sorry. But Mr. Gil, I consider you like an unofficial mentor, and Dr. Morio knows. Dr. Morio knows I've written about you in several of my assignments. So one of the things that stood out to me since I've worked with you, and like I relate to this a lot, and I feel like the class should hear you talk about this because you were really passionate, is emotional intelligence. So can you just define what that means to you and explain why that's so important?
Perfect segue. We did not plan that, or
I was just wondering.
We did not rehearse that. So emotional intelligence. So this book really, I gotta tell you, has changed the way I think, how I approach things. When I first got into the business, I became a front office manager, and I was a single guy, and I was a workaholic, and I just really cared about the business. And to a certain extent, I cared for my staff, but I didn't care so much about what's going on with their lives. Like, so for me, you're scheduled at 7 o'clock. I need you there at 7 o'clock. And if you call out, I would lose my mind. I would be like, what do you mean you're calling out? It was like to the point where people would come to work sick, and I would have to send them home. And I remember getting something that our company did. It's called a 360-degree feedback, whereas it's like a survey that you send out to 5 of your colleagues, a couple of people that you report to, and then people that report to you, you pick them, and they fill out an anonymous survey about you of all the great things that you do well, and also all the things that you need to work on. And the one thing that I got back was that I don't care about others. I didn't care about others, or if you're a single mother and you're dealing with babysitting issues and stuff like that, they felt that I didn't care enough. And I really couldn't understand that, because I'm like, I buy everybody gifts, and I give them days off when they need. How can they say this about me? Until I finally saw that survey word for word, and it was multiple people saying that I needed to be more compassionate and more empathetic. And I just didn't know what that meant until I had kids. Well, until my wife had kids, we had kids. And that alone really changed a lot of how I handle things and how I handle situations. And then another mentor of mine gave me a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. He says that, you can be the smartest guy in the room, Gil, but if you're not emotionally intelligent, that doesn't mean crap. Doesn't mean anything. It's just because you're not empathetic. You're not understanding why people, you have to understand what your team members are saying, or or your colleagues are saying to you, and blocking it in. And I truly believe that if you have a high EQ, emotional intelligence, then you're going to be successful in life. I truly believe in that. And it's something that that every manager that starts at this hotel gets this copy of this book. It's part of their onboarding. They take a test before, and then they take it after, and how they feel about emotional intelligence. And I think it's really allowed our team, our managers, to kind of be understanding, be more empathetic, understand how the world works, because it's easy to be good at numbers, but it's not so easy when you're trying to understand that you have a single mother trying to get to work, and you can't understand why she's always late, and understanding just the whole process of it. I'm using that as an example, but I truly believe that being emotionally intelligent is really going to set you up for life, because we're all humans. We're not robots. We're not a spreadsheet. And you can be good at financials, but if you treat people like crap, it's just not going to work. Especially in our business, it's not. So, so I appreciate you bringing that up, and we talk about that. I did a whole presentation on what emotional intelligence is, and how it's defined, and what it looks like. And I encourage you guys to buy this book. It's really cheap. You can get it on Amazon. I'm not the writer, I'm not the publisher or anything like that, but I'm not getting anything out of it. But I do know that I give this to every single leader of our hotel, and they're required to read it and understand it, and hopefully it's made a difference. I know it's made a difference in several of our managers' approach and how they go about things. Because I think sometimes we could be a little bit too aggressive in our approach and how to get things done. And I think that it's made a difference in my career. So I appreciate it. Hopefully it made a difference to you, Akila. So I appreciate that.
Akeelia, if you don't mind, I just want to ask a follow-up question, unless you had a follow-up, Akeelia, or not. Okay, before we let other students in. But since we're on that topic, Gil, so I know you can't, you can do a whole presentation on it, and I'm not asking you to do that now, but could you just give us a kind of a, just a Cliff Notes summary, if you will, of what you think emotional intelligence entails?
Well, it's overall, you got to be, and I think I've touched on this earlier in the presentation, but the empathy needs to be there, right? Understanding what empathy is, understanding that different feelings and different approaches, and I was brought up in the business where you treat everybody the same. Whether like this person is that way, you treat everyone the same, and that's it, and then everything will be fine. Well, that's not how life works. You don't, I sure as hell don't talk to my kids the same, because one is a little bit tougher than the other, and it's just how the world is. So for me, it's when we approach things, or when we deal with guests, understanding what the guest is feeling, like really just like allowing yourself to feel and understand where they're coming from. And if you can do that, if you can understand where they're coming from, or their approach, or what their process is, you can make a better decision. And I think that for us as hoteliers, we tend to always think that, not always, but we oh, the guest is might be, I think they're exaggerating, or I think that they may be doing this or doing that, taking advantage of us when they're wanting some type of compensation. But my first question back to you was just like, okay, put yourself in their shoes. Okay? Put yourself at this situation, their shoes. How would you handle that? Or when you ask a team member, why did you deal with this guest in a certain way? Walk me through that. That's like, I get made fun of at the hotel because that's one of my words. I was like, walk me through your thought process of that. I'm not the guy that's going to come in and yell at you or say, hey, why did you do this? Just walk me through your thinking of how you approach this, and where did you come to that solution? Okay, and they give me their answer. I'm like, okay, you did this correctly, and then maybe you can, next time, let's work on this, and this. And I think that having that approach really, really answers a lot. And it allows even our team members, we're giving, like our staff, use an example at the front desk. Before they would, any little issue that we would have, they would automatically get a manager or a supervisor. Whereas here, we give that empowerment to our staff, our team members, to take care of our guests, take care of them. Because not every guest is out there trying to get something over on us. At the end of the day, they're just want things to get fixed. They want to be understood. You want you to hear their problem. And I think it's the same thing from a team member's perspective. So empathetic, understanding how that all works, and understanding where your team members are feeling and where they're coming from, and having that open mind will really set you up for success. So I know that's a long answer, but
no, that's great. In fact, I think one of these times we need to have a whole session on this. And what intrigues me, and it, hell, I'm not a youngster anymore, but it's taken me many years, and I don't know that I've achieved it yet, is with a guest to be able to read where the guest is coming from. And that's still tough to do sometimes, especially when it's a pressure situation. You got people standing in line at the front desk, and this person wants this. And I know in my own case, sometimes I'll think, oh, this guy he just wants to get a rate reduction, or he wants a room upgrade, and I have to catch myself with that.
It's just being self-aware, and understanding how your surroundings, and understanding what that person is trying to convey to, instead of just automatically assuming things or getting things that misinterpreted. It's just, I think listening is a big attribute, but understanding you're surrounding yourself as well. And I think this book really made me learn a lot about myself. And because I learned more about myself, I was able to utilize this in how I manage hotels more effectively.
Thank you, Gil. Okay, next student. Who wants to go next? Sam, I think you're on deck today, aren't you?
Yes. Yes, yes. Um, Hey, Gail. So I have one other question about the budgeting.
Sure.
How, like, the part of the budgeting process, like, what is the most challenging part? And like, I'm assuming it has changed a lot since COVID.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the most challenging thing about a budget, it depends on what year, right? So for us, it's more of like having an understanding of what the ownership group wants and what do you think is reasonable, and trying to find that balance and a middle point. I think that, and how are you going to get there, right? So for us, we look at a lot of things. We look at how many group rooms we have for 21. We look at how much catering and business we already have booked, and then how we have paced and prior historical figures and trends, and how we can incorporate that. So I think right now, understanding and how the market's also performing as well. So you comparing yourself to the market and what we expect the new year and how it's going to be. And then, for us, a big thing is that we're looking at if there's going to be a vaccination for COVID and when's that going to happen, because really we won't see tourism improve until really a vaccination is kind of set in play. And then that intel will improve the airline industry and will then improve the hotel occupancy and things of that nature. So, we have to put all of that into perspective. But the biggest thing is just managing expectations. I think managing our it's okay to tell an ownership group to say, you know what, that's probably pushing it with regards to revenues or profitability or things of that nature. We have to look at a lot of things. Each department, each division head, executive, they put together their own expense line items based off of whatever we put together on a revenue side. We send that off to them. They'll put a spreadsheet together looking at different expenses in their individual areas. And then they'll come to the table. We will put the budget together, and then we will go in, either bring up, bring down. We'll massage the numbers a little bit just to make sure that it feels good based on historical trends. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I think that the biggest thing is managing expectations and understanding where your revenue is coming from. Because the last thing you want to do is turn in a budget and you don't feel good about it. You got to make sure that you are, because you're putting your name on that. So you got to make sure that you feel good about that projected number that you're giving them. It has to work.
That's a great answer, Gil. And I would take this opportunity to add to what Gil just said to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, that some of you think that you're going to have to wait until you're where Mr. Gil Ryes is to do budgets. Well, that's just not the case. You're going to be, because where do you think he gets his budget? He's probably got every department head in that hotel submitting their parts of the budget, which he then looks at as a GM. And they may indeed have even sub-budgets coming in from some of their team members in those departments. And what I would recommend to you is that if you, and I know you've had your accounting courses already. I mean, I get it. Most of you have. And we have three. You have managerial, you have financial, and then you've got our hospitality, finance, and accounting. If you forgot about budgeting, I would urge you to revisit that topic before you go out and before you graduate. One more time, revisit it. And because what he's talking about, historical budgets, yes, we're going to look at what they did last year, and we're going to, well, this is a very different kind of year, but normally we would talk about changes based on the market and change based on the competition from a historical perspective. So if we did 5% occupancy last year. Should we do 87 this year? And so forth. But also to check yourself on what Gil Ryes just said, because you got to defend this thing. You then have to live with it for the next 12 months. Is to maybe do your own, even if they don't require you to, do some zero-based budgeting within your own budget. So, for example, you're saying breakfast, we're going to do X number of dollars of breakfast on weekdays and X number on weekends. Well, was that just because you increased last year's by a 0.5%? Or maybe do a zero-based budget, actually work out numbers of covers and menu prices and find out what you think the revenue is going to be. So I'm just inviting you to use the tools that I hope you've learned in those accounting courses. Have you learned those in those accounting courses? I'm just curious. How many people had to do a budget as part of one of your free accounting courses? Okay, good. All right.
I'll tell you that the single most important class that I took in college when I went to Lynn University for undergrad for my hospitality degree was financial accounting, managerial accounting. And I can tell you that it really, I was horrible in high school in math, like algebra, geometry. It's, if I got a B in that class when I was in high school, I was thrilled. It was like the best thing. But I really thrived in accounting. I loved it. It was just like the light switch went on. I really, it just really made sense, especially for what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. So I highly encourage you to take those classes and listen and understand the concepts of why, because I think that's really helped me in my career and understanding how things work in my hotel and why things flow a certain way and things of that nature. So it's to your point, Dr. Mario, I think it's super important that every single one of you, if you haven't taken the class, to really pay attention and make sure you do well in it, because it's definitely going to be helpful for you in your career.
Gil, that's interesting that you said that, because I had the same experience in high school, and then even in undergraduate, algebra, there was no geometry in college. There was in high school. But algebra in college, a couple of algebra courses. I mean, I prayed Thanksgiving when I got a B in those courses. But accounting, it's like another language, and it's not math. It's arithmetic. It's just adding and subtracting. So it's real easy. So thank you for making me feel better. Sorry about the dog. Who's got the next question? I'm going to silence myself. Everybody's at the door. I'm just going to silence myself. Who's got the next question?
I've got a question.
Go ahead, Bo. I'm going to silence myself so you're not.
So I've heard, or I think I read somewhere in the news that 1,000 people every day are moving to Florida, and a lot of it has to do with COVID. My question is, and I work out on Siesta Key, and it's been a very busy summer, like much busier than normal summers. We're setting records almost every day. Do you feel as though the season in Sarasota is becoming longer, or do you think this has more to do with COVID than anything else?
I think both. I think overall, we've seen a strong summer as well. In fact, our transient numbers, as I mentioned earlier, are higher than we had last year. I think there's more people that are driving to us. A lot of local, not local, but more people that live on the other side of the coast. So, and the other thing is that with COVID, that South Florida, Palm Beach, the East Coast have been on lockdown for a longer period of time compared to us. And Sarasota and just our area in general is just, it's a great place to be at. I think it's clean, safe, a lot of great restaurants. And I think that we'll continue to see that. I think more people are leaving. For example, like Lakewood Ranch, I mentioned it earlier. That's where I brought my family to. It's the second highest place to live in the country for millennials. So a lot of people are moving here, and it helps that I have no state income tax. So I think that helps too. You're adding an additional, 12, 13% compared to your paycheck. So I think that's helpful. But I do believe that we will continue to see this trend of more locals, more people coming to this market because they don't want to get on a plane. You know, they don't want to get on a plane. They don't want to go to California. They don't want to go to these different states because they're scared. And you come to Florida, you can get in a car, you can go to the beach, you can go to different lakes, you can go to different amusement parks. It's just, there's so many things to do here that you don't have to get on a plane and being confined and kind of like a canister, what is so to say, for a long period of time. So, and do I think the summers are going to be longer moving forward? I think so. I think that we were able to establish and show the country and the world what we have to offer in a sense of things to do, and I think you'll see that moving forward. So that's a great question.
It was a good question. Thank you, Gil. Before we go on with more students, Dr. Gian, do we have any questions from the audience? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Gil, there is one question from an audience member. They are asking you, you mentioned earlier that the numbers for this month is comparable to last year, which is great news. But this person is curious about your thoughts about the MICE industry, meetings and events. Do you think that the MICE industry will ever come back to what it was before if the pandemic finishes, or it will be changed forever?
Good question. I think that, as I mentioned before, we all learn when things like this occur. We take whatever approach and we kind of make adjustments accordingly. Do I think it will come back? Absolutely, I think so. I think that we just have to be smarter and have to be more strategic in how we set up. Like, for example, I have a ballroom that can fit about 400 people. Right now, we're not setting it up for that. We're setting it up for a 50% capacity. And I think it will come back. I think a lot of meeting planners are becoming smarter as well. And we're testing a lot of things like hybrid meetings, whereas we can have a portion of the group in our meeting space, the other portion maybe in their guest room, utilizing a web-based, Zoom-based kind of call. So again, once we do get a vaccination, hopefully we can get that in the first quarter of 21. I'm not sure, but if that happens, I think things will start to turn. Plus, hoteliers have learned their lessons and understand how to manage their operations and day to day. I think that they will make things a lot more sufficient and effective for meeting planners, so they can see exactly. Perfect. Another example is like, how do we do buffets? You know, buffets. It's especially when you're hosting 150 to 200 people. How can you feed that many people at once and at a time frame? Putting that all into perspective and working with your food and beverage team to come up with different dynamics and approaches on making sure you're servicing the guests, but also giving them a quality meal that they can go away from and they can go back to their meeting and say, hey, this was a great place. So I think it will come back. I just think that we'll be smarter and better for it, and we'll understand how to work in those different parameters. And I think you'll also see a lot more hybrid meetings occurring in the near future.
Thank you.
How about any other questions from any of the students in the class now? Nobody's got a question? I don't want to hog this. We got 5 minutes left, but I will hog it.
I
Dr.
have a
Pat.
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Gian. Now, who started? Somebody started?
Sorry,
Who was it?
me.
Yeah, go ahead, Devin.
Okay. I heard you mention earlier about how you guys have the bar open. You have a restaurant too. Are you doing it like how other regular restaurants are, like doing takeout, 25 or 50% occupancy? Are you running it like that too?
We are. So we we streamlined our menus a little bit.
Did you be quiet?
So we also do takeout at the hotel, but we also adjusted our hours of operation. So kind of like several answers to your question. So for example, we've got 3 outlets. We have a lobby bar, we have our restaurant, and we have our rooftop. So during the week, because of our occupancy levels, because it fluctuates, we would normally have our lobby bar open throughout the week in normal years. But unfortunately, because of our occupancy slightly slipping, we now have our lobby bar open mainly Friday through the weekend, and then we'll send everyone up to the rooftop. And then we'll also have our restaurant bar open, but then we will not open up for lunch. Now, eventually we are going to be opening up our restaurant for lunch once we start to see occupancy pick up more than we feel that it makes sense for us to keep it open. So just understanding the dynamics of things, understanding, okay,
Gigi,
does it make sense to keep your restaurant open or keep your lunch period open? I think we're getting there. You just have to be smarter about it. Our menus used to be about 3 pages long. Now it's really condensed to 1.5 page on things that we feel that our customers will like, and we menu engineer everything. So we just had to really look back, look at our different outlets, see what works for us. What's interesting is that room service is having a record-breaking year. Where considering some hotels have completely eliminated room service, here, our room service department is absolutely crushing it because a lot of people just don't want to go into a restaurant. They just don't want to be around people. They're still a little nervous about it. So they rather have their meal in the room. And we've seen a large uptick in that. And that's being down to budget and occupancy points on certain days of the week. So if that answers your question, but it's interesting that our room service has gone up. And the other thing that's really gone up, which is funny a little bit, is beverage. Everyone's drinking now. So we've seen our alcohol consumption go up tremendously compared to prior years, and then our food has pretty much stayed flat or a little bit down to last year, or what we've done in the past.
Great, thank you, Gil. Jihan, did you have one other question? We have 2
quick question, Gil. I'm just curious about your costs. Like some of the stuff you mentioned in terms of the revenue side go up, but for example, now that housekeepers are going to the room less, do you see any cost reduction in some of the areas or maybe increase?
Actually, I've seen the opposite. I think that because of the fact that we have to carry so many different like alcoholic wipes or hand sanitizer throughout, it's actually gone up. We spent close to $8,000 in an electro sprayer, which is basically a machine that you, after every guest room use or meeting space, we have to spray the lobby, the bed, the guest room with this. It's like a disinfectant that kills any germs or bacteria that's in the air. So in fact, I would say that our expenses have gone up, and we have to learn of how we're going to be able to manage that into moving forward, because that's not going away. I think that's something that's here to stay. And granted, every hotel does their best and should be following protocols and cleaning. But I think now with everything going on, you have to take that extra step. Masks, for example, we provide all of our team members masks every day. And if a guest doesn't have a mask, we provide that mask for them. So I think that eventually that will slow down. I still think that's going to be part of the norm. And we need to be prepared for that. For example, hold on for a second. I have a whole box of these. This is just masks that we give to our team members. And one bag of this you're talking about 58 cents a pop. I've got 113 team members plus our guests that we have to provide that for. It can add up. So in fact, I would say that our expenses have gone up. We've had to adjust in other areas to compensate a little bit for it, but for the most part, it's going to go up.
Thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, how are you handling pillows in the rooms? And I know we have to sign off in a minute, but how are you handling pillows and sanitation of pillows?
So we have to take those out. Every guest that we have to change our pillows out.
Change it out, put a new pillow in?
Yes.
Really?
The pillow cases.
Oh, the cases, yeah. But what about the ticking on the pillows?
Well, that's where the electrosphere comes.
Okay, all right.
So.
And does that form a barrier with the filling of the pillow? Then is that working out okay?
Yeah. Yes. And then Marriott has also sent out certain protocols on how to handle that and how to clean a room effectively to make sure that you are getting every area correctly.
Yeah, good. Well, listen, I'm sorry, students, we're a minute over time, and I wanted to thank you, Gil Ryes. This is your third time with us, and as Gil says, when we're back up to capacity, the next adjunct we hire is going to be Gil, that's for sure. And this is an example of his knowledge and his ability to to take that knowledge and translate it into reality, which is kind of important. Gil, I didn't get a chance to ask you today about, and I didn't want to put you on a spot necessarily yet, about why you are doing so much differently in terms of performance than some of your big box competitors in town. There are several. And that's something I didn't invite all of you to think about. I'm sure Gil knows why, but it's an interesting thought process there. And there are a lot of reasons for it too. Next week's speaker is going to be, let me double check.